So it's the mid 1970s, and you're in a fairly successful progressive band. And then your lead singer says, "Sorry, guys, I got to go." What do you do? The story behind that coming up next. Hi, this is Scott. Welcome to another segment of Righteous Vinyl. Thanks for hitting play on the video and finding out who is on the turntable this time around. This past January marks the 40th anniversary of the release of today's feature, and it is by the band, you guessed it, Genesis, and the album Trick of the Tail, released back in 1976, ushering in the Phil Collins era of Genesis. Peter Gabriel had left the band back in 1974 and through 1975. The band wasn't really sure how they were going to continue on. There was some talk about just being an instrumental progressive piece, or progressive band rather, or an instrumental progressive band, or they were going to have other singers come in from time to time to fill in the role for Peter Gabriel. Instead, what ended up happening is they did go through an audition process, bringing people in to fill the slot for the lead singer. Phil Collins would end up teaching the person the song, and after listening to the audition tapes, other members of the bands went, "Hey, you sound better than that guy or that girl or whatnot." And it was even Phil Collins' ex-wife at the time, or current wife, Andy, I believe her name was, said, why don't you become the lead singer? Well, that thought kind of terrified Phil Collins because he wanted to keep the most respectable role in the band, and that was being the drummer. Tracks included on Trick of the Tail are Entangled, which was the standout single. There's a song called Squonk on it. The album does start out with a powerhouse rock kind of anthem called Dance on a Volcano. And also there's a song called Madman Moon. There is still a little bit of progressive happening on the album, and you can feel that Genesis is still trying to get their foothold, but their success when this album came out was still in front of them. They still had the onset of music videos that were coming out. They had Duke and Abacab and Invisible Touch, and of course, backing up a few albums, they would release their first, I believe it was close to number one single, Follow You, Follow Me, off of And Then There Were Three. So all that success, all the fame and fortune was yet to come with the Phil Collins era. And when you do talk about Genesis, you are talking about two different eras. You're talking about the Peter Gabriel era, and you're also talking about the Phil Collins era. And what I would say is that I find that the Peter Gabriel era is the more artistic and the more progressive part of the band, or progressive era of the band, if you will. And then when you get into the Phil Collins era, yes, you get into the more top 40, more commercially successful, more accessible songs, and with a larger audience. Where maybe the Peter Gabriel era is more of a cult following. But Peter Gabriel would go on to have as much commercial success as Genesis did. And back in the 80s, you would find that Peter Gabriel and Genesis would be running parallel to one another, close into the music charts. Phil Collins would go on to be a producer. He would even go on to play on a couple of Peter Gabriel solo albums as well. And in 2021, after we all get through this COVID pandemic, Genesis is going on tour with the Last Domino tour over in Europe. I don't know if they're going to play in the States yet. And it'll feature Nicholas Collins on drums, who played with his dad a couple years ago when Phil did his Not Dead Yet tour. I saw them in Boston at the time, and his son is a phenomenal drummer. Well, most of the kids. Simon Collins is a phenomenal drummer as well. But Nicholas is coming along with his dad with his old band Genesis for the 2021 tour as well. Hopefully they'll play here in the U.S. So that's today's Righteous Vinyl feature, ladies and gentlemen, and the album from 1976 and the 40th anniversary of the release, Genesis, Trick of the Tail. I'm Scott Oliver, your host for Righteous Vinyl, always reminding you, no matter what spins in your life, make sure that it is playing your favorite type of music. That's going to do it for today's segment. Thanks for hanging out with me. I even got my Trick of the Tail coffee mug over here. See you next time.